Of gaming, I'm the Archmaster. Today, we are getting a little treat. We are talking about the Elamani, or Elamani. It's like element, but a person of element, and Elamani. If you watched my Vyleth video, my Tiefling / Vyleth video, you know that I don't do the typical, Tieflings are just born with devilish blood from some parent. Oh well, you actually become a Vyleth, my version of Tiefling. Over the course of your life, as you commit vices and murder and theft and all this stuff, your body changes to show your evil on the outside, right? To express what is inside, outside. Actually, something I didn't mention in that video was that also applies the other way. If you do good things, you become an ASMR, or my version of it. I'll have to say that for another video, I suppose. Anyway, this one is about the elemental version. This is my replacement for Genasi, the 5e Forgotten Realms version of Genasi. Likewise, I don't do just an elemental birth thing. I also don't do genies, because I think genies, and I think Arabic, and I think bottles, and I just don't think elements. So I don't do genies. I have elementals sovereigns. Anyway, my Elamani come about when someone becomes so adherent to an element that it changes their body. I think I've mentioned adherence in a couple of other videos, but here's a crash course. Elemental adherence, or just adherence of any kind, but I'm going with elemental here, is when you take your body and you attune it to an element. In 5e you have your 3 attunement slots. In my system you have a lot more than that. Some are your body, some are your soul. You can attune your soul to something. Some magic items require soul attunement, some require body attunement, but you can attune those slots. You can assign those slots of your body, your body share. You can attune those to an element, like fire, earth, air, water. And when you do that, you start to gain the magic, because there's magic innate to all the elements, and the weather and the seasons and all that. You start to gain a bit of that magic yourself. And the more, attunement slots, the more adherence slots you apply to an element, the more benefits you get, until you apply all 4 of your body share. The humans have 4. We'll just start with humans. Dwarves have 6. Humans have 4. Anyway, when you apply all of your body share to an element, you become an Elamani, which is my version of Genasi. So let's pick fire, right? Just like in 5e, you can have flaming hair, you can have smoking skin, like burning coals and cracks in your skin that shed light and all that stuff. You can have actual magic, not really cantrips, but I don't really do those. But you can have magic abilities, minor manipulation of fire. You can maybe fly a little bit, upward propulsion. You can have, actually, it's in my book exactly. One of my early first drafts of what you get from your adherence, and just like me in my own book, it's hard to find. Anyway, if you're air adherence, you can get flight. If you're water adherent, you can get stuff like invisibility. There are all sorts of cool things. Let's just go with fire. Fire is something everyone understands. Breathe smoke, orange glow on your fingertips and ears, thin parts of flesh. The thin parts of your flesh glow, like you take a flashlight and put it in your hand and it glows, right? That's your ears. The thin parts of your flesh glow like that because you have this internal fire. You're better at intimidation. You have extra. Weapon damage. It's all about, fire and violence and aggression, right? Because fire is an aggressive thing. It represents power. You can, at second level adherence, it's not level like class level, it's, second tier of fire adherence. You can make your weapons flame. You leave little, flaming spots where you walk. It's super cool. At tier 3, you become resistant to fire damage. You can extinguish or light fires. Smoking skin now, you're almost there. There's an orange glow beneath your cracked skin. You can even see into angle dimensions, which is kind of cool. And then lastly, 4th tier of fire congruence, you become a fire Elamani. You can shape flame, command fiery weather. You get essentially spells, fire facets. You can turn into a flame and travel quickly. You just transform into a flame and move around, hit people, and it's super cool. Everyone gets a transform ability at tier 4 where they turn into their element. You can either fly or turn into a flame, or turn into a boulder and run around, or turn into a mini tsunami, a tidal wave, and lots of cool stuff. You can see in dim light. You actually get a form of dark vision. Yes, you have to get 4 tiers of fire, congruence, adherence to actually, see in the dark, because your eyes are always lit. You have this flame vision, right? I know physics, it doesn't actually make sense, but it's fantasy. But yeah, and you can even see invisibility for 1 minute once a day. I mean, that's kind of cool. It's like, I see you, my fire lights all. It's that kind of stuff. I think that's much more interesting than the Genasi of 5e and Forgotten Realms. And I think giving the players the options to choose that regardless of their chosen class and race and anything else. Like, you get to be a fire, a fire human, fire elf, fire dwarf, etc. That's another thing. My races, except human, they start out with a certain level of adherence to a certain element, and that's what makes them that race. So a dwarf starts out with 2 tiers of adherence in Earth, just automatically at level 1, because you're a dwarf, you're made of stone, right? And humans start out with none, because they're very versatile. Wood elves start out with 1 water and 1 earth, because you put water and earth together and you get plants and stuff. So wood elf, I think that makes sense. Desert elves are earth and fire, because you take fire and you scorch earth and you get a desert. Makes sense. But yeah, it's kind of core. It's kind of integral. The fact that elements in my world aren't just elements, but they're all imbued with magic. Every type of element in a certain season and area and whatnot, it has a different magical effect. And there's this. I'm working on a giant category list of all the different magical effects that the different elements have in different circumstances, and that's actually how the elemental mage casts his spells. It's not just throwing fire at someone. It's saying, all right, I have some fire. What's the concept behind fire? Oh, it's strength. Great, let me pull out that concept and give it to the fighter guy. Now he's extra strong. Or, let's take aggression and make someone who's not a barbarian rage. Like, let's take rage from fire, because, the concepts are related. Let's take rage out of fire and throw it to him. Maybe a fire this big isn't big enough. Maybe you need a bonfire, right? So you're like, hey, we're lighting the fire, maybe you throw like alchemist fire or something. You make a fire, and now you have access to 3rd level spells because you're pulling it from a physical fire in the world. This is a way I nerf casters, is that you don't have access to all your spells all the time. You have to actually, if you're an elemental mage, you have to actually pull it from the element nearby. It's like, yeah. So anyway, I think that's super cool. I really like it. It makes it more interactive. Anyone of any race can do it. You can ask your GM, hey, can I be born an Elamani? And you're just like, sure. That doesn't break anything. That's like asking, can I be born a Genasi? Sure. But you also get to become one if you want, right? I'm not taking anything away. I'm adding extra options. You can layer stuff. In 5e, you just have your background, which essentially no one, it never comes up in gameplay, so you can just throw that out. I'm talking about 2014 5e, by the way. So you really are just left with your race and your class. And of course, I've race and subclass, but I'm counting it as the same. You have your race and your class. Those are pretty much the only 2 things that make up your character. And class is like 80% of what your character is. Features-wise of what you're actually doing with gameplay and stuff, it's just your class. So because 5e is so simple, race and class, and really mostly just class, there's not a lot of room for customization. There's not a lot of room for layering on cool things. If you want to go and say, oh, I want to go serve, Talos and get, reduced shouts and reduced shout cooldown like Skyrim. You can't. If it's not part of your class. Oh, do you want to be a cleric? Is that what you mean? You want to multi-class? Like, no, I want to add this thing on top. I want to be a warrior that also serves someone. It's like, oh, that's a paladin. It's like, no, I want to layer things. I don't, in 5e it's very restrictive. It's simple, but it's restrictive because you only have 1 slot to fill. It's just pretty much your class. That's the only customization you really have throughout all the rest of the game. You can't multi-race, you can't multi-background, you can only multi-class. And it's not as good. In my system, you have your adherence, your devotion, which I may or may not have talked about, but it's essentially, you serving some entity or being or ideal or a sacred oath or any number of things, right? And it gives you various abilities and powers, totally regardless of your race and your class. You have adherence, devotion, of course you have magic items, you have all sorts of enchantments and stuff. I go the Elder Scrolls route and have a lot of like enchantable armor and whatnot. You can actually enchant things. It's just there. I allow you to layer on customization where it's not just 1 layer of class. And that's it. You can't layer anything, it's just the class. You can change it out for something else, but you can't layer. It's like, in my system, you actually get a lot of customization. There's so much you can do in it. You can make deals with patrons, and it doesn't matter what your class is. You can just make a deal with the patron and get spells and whatnot because you gave him your soul. And now, all right, you don't have a soul, you don't have any daily luck anymore, you lost that resource. Oh, you need to attune to something that requires soul shards? You're out of soul, you already gave it to a patron, right? So it costs you something. It's a problem if you have to do a willpower save. You subtract the soul shards you don't have anymore because your soul is your will, right? So you sold those. Now you're going to fail all your willpower saves, right? So it costs you, but now you have access to 3rd level spells, like just like that, because you made a deal, right? I think that's so much more interesting. Instead of saying, oh, well, you need to wait to level up and then you can multi-class. It's like, no, I want to be a fighter. I want to be a warrior with my fancy enchanted sword. But I met a patron and I want to do this, and I don't want it to just, well, if you got a level in warlock, that's a level you can't get in fighter. It's like, no, I don't want it to take up what I have. I want it to be added on top. I want it to be layered. I want to make complex, multi-layered, multi-dimensional characters that aren't just one note, I'm a fighter, right? Anyway, my system has tons of customization. But of course, I'm really off topic about the origin of the Ilmani, but one thing I do in my system is that so much of it is optional. You don't have to make a deal with the patron. You don't have to swear a sacred oath. You don't have to use adherence. You don't have to use your devotion ability. There's a lot of complexity in my game, but it's all optional complexity. I make it a point to offer optional complexity at every turn. And if you want to say, hey, I just want to kind of pretend it's 5e, you can do that. You can say, hey, I want to attune to the magic item. And instead of an attunement slot, it says, oh, that's a body shear slot. That's an adherence slot. Okay, you mark it. Done. That's a tiny change. You're not confused. You're not overwhelmed. It's nothing complicated. It's a different name for the same thing. It's an attunement slot. And if you want to just leave it like that, just play the way you were playing in 5e, you totally can. But if you want customization, it's there. And you can play alongside a player who's like, yeah, I'm not attuned to any items. I have all this, fire magic stuff. And they actually gave up something to get that. Now they can't have attunements and you can, right? So no one's more overpowered because they choose to use the more complex thing. The optional complexity is there for those who want it, but it doesn't unbalance anything. It's a really cool system. I'm very pleased with it. I just got to get, Patreon and funding and all that stuff to actually release it. Anyway, thanks for watching. We're finally done. YouTube pleasantries go a long way. Patreon in the description. Discord server for those who want to debate or just join a community and all that cool stuff. And thanks for watching. God bless.